So I'm going to be talking about looking at the vulnerability ecosystem that exists around cyber vulnerabilities around the world. So, and the work I'm talking about is based on 3 papers, but is actually an extension of these 3 papers that we published about a year and a half back. In 2019, we've been continuing with this work. And so these 3 papers were in KDD, ICHCAI, and ICDM in 2019. We're just wrapping up a much more extensive journal version of that. And I'm really talking about the latter rather than these 3 papers. So the goal is quite simple to state. As you all know, there are tons of vulnerabilities, and these vulnerabilities that are known are called CVEs, common vulnerabilities and exposures. And each of these vulnerabilities has a CVE number that is assigned by a CVE numbering authority. In the US, one of the major ones is Micro Corporation. NIST is also involved in managing the National Vulnerability Database. And so many of you know this very, very well. Our goal is quite simple to state. For vulnerabilities for which a CVE number has been assigned, can we predict if that vulnerability will be used in an actual real-world exploit in the future? If that is indeed the case, that the prediction is that it will be exploited, can we predict how far into the future it will be exploited? Tomorrow, in a week, or 3 months from now? And how severe will this vulnerability be? As you all know, NIST assigns to each vulnerability something called a CVSS score on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the most severe, 1 being the least severe. So can we predict that number well in advance of what NIST puts out? And why do we want to do this? There are many very good reasons, but let's start with virtually any company. And let's take a particular CVE. If your company is running the software or hardware in which that CVE exists, then you need to think, should I patch it? Should I not? Now, of course, I'm speaking to a security audience, and everybody in security, would say, yeah, you got to patch everything right away. And that's a very valid and sensible point. But the real world doesn't work like that. We know from a study by Symantec some years ago by my former colleague, Tudor Dimitris, that on average, there's a gap of 4 months between the time a patch is available and the time the patch is